So in this video, I'm going to explain how to upgrade the firmware on the OpenLog Artemis. As I received mine from Sparkfun, it had OpenLog Artemis version 2.4 firmware on it. The current most up-to-date firmware is 2.8. Now, if the sensors you want to use are supported by like the 2.4 firmware, there's no real reason to upgrade. But if you need the latest code that supports newer sensors, for example, somebody has just added support for the TMP102 sensor, which costs half of what the TMP117 sensor costs. So if you need support for the absolute latest sensors, latest firmwares, you want to get rid of some bugs, you will need to update the firmware on this. So to figure out what firmware it is, you basically just take this guy, you plug it into your serial port while you have a terminal connected, and it will go through its boot up thing, and it shows you there what it is. You'll have to push a button to stop the scrolling, and you can look at the top, and it will basically say, hey, look, this is version 2.4. There's a little bit of extra junk there, but you can still read the version number. So if you want to upgrade, you are going to need the upgrader, and the easiest way to do this is to download the standalone Artemis firmware upload GUI, and they have this for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I'll put a link to this page in the video description so you can find that page. Otherwise, you can search for upgrade instructions for the OpenLog Artemis. And you have to know which version you have. If you have the red Sparkfun version, that's the V10. If you have the black one, the SparkX version, it's X04. And so currently the latest stable version is OpenLog Artemis V10-v28.bin. And so you would download that from the binaries folder. So when you go into the binaries folder, it's going to have the different versions all listed here. And so in this particular case, if you were going to the version 2.8, you'd want to click on that and download it. And once you have that in place, then you need to use the OpenLog Artemis GUI uploader. And so this firmware upload GUI, you can basically download. If you go farther down this page, when you click on this thing here, it will take you to this guy here, which is the main GitHub where that's hosted. And they have installation section. You go to there and hey, you want Windows, just download this file here. If you scroll down a little farther, it'll say, hey, there's Mac, here's where you can download the DMG image. If you are on Linux, you would download this one down here. So once you've downloaded it, you just have to run it. And so when you run it, it's going to pop up a little window that looks like this, and it really only has a few things to modify here. There's the location of where your firmware file is stored. So after you download it, it's going to be somewhere on your file system. You might have to navigate to a specific spot to load the specific firmware you want. And then you need to pick the serial port. And so on mine, it's USB serial TTY USB 0. And that's the same port that you would normally connect with the terminal. And while you're doing this, you can't have your terminal connected to the OpenLog Artemis because then the terminal would be interfering with uploading the firmware. So you will need to close off your terminal, exit out your terminal. And what I recommend you do is you unplug this guy from power USB and then plug it back in, and the bootloader will be active, and you hit the upload firmware button, and it'll say, hey, uploading, and you'll get a little bar moving across the screen. Now, if for some reason you don't get that bar, the other thing you can do is there's a reset button on this guy. It's this little silver box. So there's a reset button on this guy. It's like a silver box with a black button on it. So you can push the reset button and then push the upload firmware button just a half a second after that, and that'll hopefully have the bootloader active when this guy's trying to upload the firmware. And you can see here I have a yellow light flashing. It's 75%. So it takes a minute or so to upload the firmware. All right, it says upload successful. You could also upload the bootloader, but unless there's a compelling reason to do so, I wouldn't bother with that. Now, once you've uploaded the firmware, you can reopen a terminal. Now, once you have a terminal open, if you need to check that your upload was successful, you can push the reset button and it will reset. And then after it's reset, you have to push a button like the spacebar to stop logging. And if you scroll up here, you'll say, hey, look, it's Artemis OpenLog, version 2.9, for example. And so you know your firmware update has gone and been updated to the latest version. So if you need to, that's how you update the firmware on one of these boards.